Hello again. My guest today has a name which is almost synonymous with Christmas. Certainly his voice is. He was one of the world's most famous boy sopranos ever, all over the world, and he recorded a song that made him a global sensation. That was the song Walking in the Air, taken from the Christmas animated movie, The Snowman. And thank you very much to Classic FM for allowing us to show that clip. Of course, it was very, very famous at the time. And as I said, it went all around the world. Everybody had heard of it by the end of that particular Christmas. It was a huge success as a movie in itself, but it was the cover version recorded by my guest a few years later that propelled both him and the movie again into a new kind of superstardom and global recognition. And frankly, he has never looked back. If you listen, as we at Viking like to do on all our ships, to the classical music radio station, Classic FM, you'll know him so well now as a grown-up, with his beautiful adult voice and, of course, his incredible experience, having lived most of his life in the world of classical music, the media, TV, and massive fame since I think about the age of 14. Here's Aled Jones, and he greets us now. Hello there, and happy Christmas, Aled.
Happy Christmas. Lovely to see you, Anne.
Isn't it amazing to look? I mean, I know everybody must say this to you and you probably get so bored of it. But looking back at that little boy in the Welsh valleys walking his dog, you know, and that was you at that age, and you were propelled into fame and stardom. What was that like?
Well, you tell me, because you've been there throughout it all, really. I think my first interview was with you and Nick on TVAM back in the day. It was mad. It was a fantastic 4 years. You know, I went from being just a normal comprehensive schoolboy to then being a comprehensive schoolboy and then somebody who sang all over the world at weekends. So it was brilliant. You know, there was no blueprint, so I was ploughing my own furrow, if you like. And
you very much were, because it's interesting. You weren't a choir boy from one of the classic colleges or cathedrals in Britain. How did anyone ever notice you in the first place?
Well, it was a dear old lady in the congregation called Hevina Orwig Evans, and on a Tuesday and Thursday evening services, she might be the only one in the congregation. And she wrote to a local recording company without us knowing, mum and dad or myself, saying there's a boy in Bangor Cathedral whose voice you should record for posterity before it breaks. So I got a letter through the post saying, do you want to make an album? And of course, you know, who'd say no? So I did. That album was on sale in a big hall in Cardiff for some reason, even though they don't have a shop there. A BBC producer from London needed a soloist to do programs from Israel that were going to be watched by millions, and asked me to do it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, and how did it affect you and your family? There you are singing, I think, on the BBC in Israel.
Yep.
I mean, what did your family think? How did you even know how to cope with this?
Well, we just went with it, really. You know, my mum at the time was a primary school teacher, my dad an engineer. You've met them. They're totally down to earth, and yeah, you know, we took it in our stride. I think we just saw it as some great adventure, you know. And I think for my dad it was harder because he's sort of painfully shy and basically would much rather be in the garden or on his boat. So for him and my mum in maybe a little bit less, you know, they had to give up a lot to come with me at weekends, to travel a lot. But we just saw it as some adventure, really, and so we tried to make the most of it.
Yes, I guess you wouldn't have known that it would have lasted a lifetime. Where did your voice come from? I mean, are your family musical? I know, obviously, Wales is traditionally the home of great singing voices, but where did your voice come from?
It seems to have missed a generation, really. My grandparents both sang, not professionally or anything like that, you know, but with sort of anyone in Wales around that time, you know, you were encouraged to sing in choirs, or even at school, we were encouraged to sing in every lesson, nearly. You know, a maths lesson, there was nothing unusual in someone bringing a guitar out and playing. And so, yeah, my parents both appreciate music. My mum plays the guitar a little bit, sort of to primary school kind of level. And music was always on in the house. And for me, I think from the age of 2 or something like that, I was always singing. I was always finding music in weird things like hair dryers and running water. I'd always be making tunes up and harmonizing and stuff like that. So yeah, it was just as normal as breathing for me, really.
Yeah. Well, and was it easy, or did you have to be trained?
It was always kind of natural. But when you do join a cathedral choir, you are trained. We sang on a Tuesday or Thursday. I had rehearsals on a Friday, and then 2 services on a Sunday. And very early on, I was doing the soloist role. So I was learning all the time. And that sets you up for life, really, as far as music's concerned. But I've always had this ability where I can pick up a piece of music and instinctively put myself into it and perform it straight away almost. And some of the early recordings that I did, because it was always with the same team, and we did something like 16 albums in 4 years, and I'd be in the church, they'd be in a van outside, and the organist would be with me, and I'd turn up in the morning and they'd say, have you looked at that Bach piece? And I'd say, yeah, I've looked at it. Oh, it's a bit too high, should we put it down? Yeah, okay. And literally within half an hour we'd have recorded it, and people say, you must have been rehearsing for months for that, because the way that the phrasing and everything. And I kind of went, well, I know, I just did it. It was just natural, really.
And it's that cathedral choir training as well. It's in there, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, it is. And in here, in your heart as well.
But you just said 14 albums or something in 4 years.
Yeah, it was.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, looking back now, that would never, ever, ever happen. You're lucky if you release an album a year, and I have been lucky because I've released 40 albums in all. But yeah, those early days were just mad, really. It was a conveyor belt of excitement.
How did the Snowman solo come about? Because as I tried to explain, and you must have had to explain this all your life, you weren't the voice on the very, very original movie.
No. But
you were the voice that frankly made it a global sensation.
It was really weird because I'd released about 10 albums or something like that by the time the Snowman came about. I didn't sing the Snowman until I was about 15, so it was quite late on in my career. And Toys R Us were launching their huge superstores in the United Kingdom, first one being in Cardiff. And they'd secured the rights for the boy flying around the store, and they wanted to use the music for Walking in the Air. Peter Orty, the original boy, who's now a very fine singer, his voice had broken. And because I was the choir boy, on the scene at the time, they asked me to do it. And it was really weird, because I'd only learnt 30 seconds of the ad. And I went into the studio to record the 30 seconds and did it in about half an hour. And John Altman, who's the producer, said, well, we've still got 3.5 hours left on the session. Let's record the whole song. And I kind of went, I haven't learnt it. So he taught me the song around the piano and we recorded it. Thank God.
I mean, and that is the turning point in your life almost. Yes, you were very, very successful up until that point, already hugely successful. But my goodness, did that change your life?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there were years when I was sort of in between singing boy soprano and adulthood and college and being a professional again, where every Christmas sort of I'd become kind of relevant again, and so Walking in the Air kind of kept that ticking along, really. And there were years when I was sort of in my teenage years where I was a bit embarrassed by it all, but now I look back on it as a sort of a proud grandfather, really.
Yes. Well, I was going to say that you have to look back on it as that. I mean, your voice is a gift, isn't it? I don't know how religious you are, but a lot of people would say that's a gift from God and it's your job to look after it.
Yeah, and I feel very privileged that I've had the opportunity to sing again as an adult as well. There was no guarantee, and I think it was you and your partner that used to sort of, it felt like, ask me every other week, has your voice broken? What are you going to do when your voice breaks? And I didn't know.
In a way, for you as a soprano and for the people who wanted to record you, it was a race against time, wasn't it? I mean, you never knew how long you would hang on to that beautiful, beautiful voice.
No, I knew I'd sing again. Whether I'd sing, I've said this before, but whether I'd sing in the Bath or the Albert Hall wasn't up to me, really. So, luckily I've had the opportunity to sing in the Albert Hall. So, I probably a bit stupidly, really, I had nothing to fall back on.
Well, never mind. Doesn't matter now. It's irrelevant.
No. No.
You have made an incredible career. You've built an incredible career since. We've got some lovely pictures, again, of you very young. I was saying you're suddenly propelled into stardom. And I remember being at the same shoot when we were asked to model jumpers.
Oh.
And you modelled, well, look how beautiful and
Yeah,
well
you know what?
washed
Giles
and everything
Brandreth,
you
he's
are
got this
there.
magic, hasn't he? He can get people to do things that they don't really want to do.
Yeah, but you got an Emmy, and I think there's a picture we've got of you getting your Emmy, which must have been an incredible moment.
Yeah, do you know what, Anne? Typical BBC, they didn't even tell us that we'd won. I heard it on the radio in the morning with my mum before going to school, and they said, and it's been a good night for the BBC over in America. Ala Jones's documentary, The Treble, won an Emmy. I was like, what's an Emmy? And then I got rushed down to London to have that photo taken with it, and that's the last I ever saw of it.
Oh, really? Don't
Yeah.
they give it to you?
No.
Oh, what's it? Well, thank goodness for the photo then.
Well, exactly, yeah. I got to hold it for about half an hour.
And then, of course, you get invited to sing in lots of private concerts. And there's a wonderful photograph of you here at the Bob Geldof wedding. This is Bob Geldof married Paula Yates. And just look at the cast list. You are there on the right, next to David Bowie. I mean, did you, as a youngster, understand how big deal this was? Or wasn't it really very impressive to you at all?
Oh, it was that was very impressive for me because I was a mad Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet fan, and I think I just really not upset Spandau Ballet, but got on their nerves because I was following them all day, kind of wanting to be in their band. That was such an amazing occasion, you know, to be part of that. It was the most rock and roll I'd ever felt as a chorister, put it that way.
Yeah.
And Bob and Paula were both so kind to me and my parents, you know, and that photo is just sort of iconic, really. There's a photo taken straight after that, which hasn't done the rounds, and that's when Midge Ure lifts his kilt and we all fall out laughing. But yeah, that was an amazing day for me and my parents. You know, it was.
I presume you sang at the wedding.
I sang about 4 songs at the wedding, and I don't know if you remember this, but there was a time when luminous socks were in North Wales anyway. So 1 green, 1 orange. And I actually wore luminous socks to the wedding. Can you believe that? And after the wedding, Bob decided that everyone would play baseball. And we did. And there were 2 teams and all these rock stars playing baseball. And it was getting dark. And Bob got me to take one of my luminous socks off to put round the ball so they could carry on playing a bit longer. So it's just, you know, weird memories.
Very weird moments, yeah. And you went on to produce more and more albums. We've seen the Ave Maria one, I think, already, and Walking in the Air on vinyl we've seen already, which is quite something to have. And of course, Classic FM has been very important to you recently, and I suppose from the beginning. And what is extraordinary is that they've made some videos and recorded some tracks where you are singing, well, there's a whole album of them, where you're singing with your younger self. How did that come about and how difficult is that to do?
It was a total fluke. I was in the back of the car with my musical director, and there had been an album which was never released that I'd recorded on my 16th birthday. And it was an album of folk songs from England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And I'd had this album and I'd sat on it for years and years and years and years. And one night we were in the car and I said, do you want to hear it? And I had it on my phone. So I played it to him and I just started singing along with the song. And he turned around to me, and I think we were eating a takeaway at the time. And he just turned around and went, we should do something with this. And it was, do you know what? It was an amazing experience being able to do it, because the first song we recorded was Eriskay Love Lilt.
Which I love. Yeah.
And the minute I, as an adult, sang with me as a boy, everything was the same. The phrasing was the same, the breathing, the way I enunciated the words, everything. And it just gelled into place. And we knew then that this album would be kind of something quite special. And, you know, I never thought it would resonate as much, but it was, I think it went to number 3 or something in the pop chart. And it was just, yeah, it was amazing. It was a great thing to do. It was almost like drawing a line under the past, you know?
Yes, I mean, I can imagine you must have been in a studio with the cans on, but when you first then hear your younger self singing in your ears and you are meant to harmonise with it as an adult, that must have been emotional as well. I must say I nearly burst into tears just hearing it myself.
It was, and there was one occasion where it was very emotional because I got asked by Classic FM to sing in Classic FM live at the Albert Hall, and the song I did was Eriskay Love Lilt, and Little Aled, as I call him, started, and I was standing on stage and seeing all the lights in the boxes of the Albert Hall, and he starts singing Verdi oro vanno, Verdi oro van, and I just heard the voice resonate around the Albert Hall, and all the years of memories just came flooding back, and it really did hit me, so much so that I almost didn't come in as an adult because I was just listening to and taking it all in, because that hall, more than any other hall, I suppose, has played such a huge part in my life. I started singing there when I think I was 12. And I've performed there over 100 times, easy. And I think one of the greatest honours, there's a mural in the Albert Hall of the people that have performed there most in its history, and little old me is in there. So it's that's a great thing.
It's an amazing place. But as a youngster walking out onto that stage, did you get stage fright, or did you just go for it?
As a boy, I didn't really get stage fright because I was, I loved singing, and I kind of. I love the experience of being on stage. You only get, I think, stage fright when you know what's at stake, really, and when you think about it more as an adult. As a boy, I kind of just went and did it. It was one of those things, really. The only time I really had stage fright was when I forgot my words in front of the Queen in a Royal Variety. That was, a horrible experience that haunted my dreams for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry to make you relive it. What happened then?
I was singing Memory of all things. And as Rory Bremner told me when I came off stage, you were singing Memory and you haven't got one. Thank you, Rory. Yeah, just what I want to hear. If you remember, as a boy, I always used the copy. I always had the words in front of me. That was my comfort blanket. And a BBC producer turned around and said, "Oh, don't use the copy. It's spoiling my shot. It'd be better if you didn't." And I went, "Okay," even though I didn't know the words. So I sang the first verse, and I remember looking right down the hall, and there was an exit sign in red, and it was flickering. The light was flickering, and in the introduction to the second verse, which just basically goes ding 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 ding, I thought to myself, I don't know what comes next.
Exit.
And so exit. That's what I should have sang. So I actually made the words up. But of course started panicking, and then came back to the original words for verse 3, 4, and 5. And I think the press the next day was saying, "Oh, the voice will be broken by the end of the week," and all this sort of business. And I was still singing 3 years later, but that was a learning curve for me, really. A, I should have learned the words better, but B, if I wasn't confident with them, I should have, stood up to the producer and said, "No, I'm going to keep the words in front of me."
Yes, absolutely. You needed those. My goodness, what an incredible story. You've been back to the Albert Hall, though, as you said many times. In fact, we've got a picture of you standing outside the Albert Hall, I think presenting. But is that presenting songs of praise from there?
Yeah. We used to do a big sing from the Albert Hall for a good 15 years, which was always the highlight of the Songs of Praise year, really. It was an incredible occasion, and I was very lucky to present it, yeah.
How long did you present Songs of Praise? Just to explain to any of our viewers who don't know Songs of Praise, it is I was going to say semi-religious program. It's sort of more about music because it is about songs of praise than it is about religion. But it's been a stalwart on the BBC every Sunday, hasn't it, for years and years and years?
Yeah, it's the longest running religious program in the world, I think. And I've been presenting it for 20 years now, which is kind of very scary. I love presenting it. It's something I take very seriously because, you're in charge of inspirational stories and also heartbreaking stories, but stories of hope as well. And as you say, the music is what it's about. So the hymns and congregations singing together. So, yeah, it's a program that's watched all over the world. I didn't realize that it's very popular in Australia as well. They play it on Sunday mornings there.
And it's lovely because it's one of the few places that really does celebrate church music as well as popular music.
Absolutely.
And that's a tradition that, I personally believe we should keep going for as long as we possibly can. But your years of building this, we ought to go through actually the fact that you did hang on to that soprano voice for a very long time. Is that the training, or maybe it's just that use, or were you just lucky? And then how did it proceed after that?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, actually. And I think it was luck, and also the fact that I was, trained to the hilt, if you like. I was almost like an athlete. The more you do it, and you have to sort of the easier it gets. It's a muscle at the end of the day. So, you know, I could sing anything all the time because I was singing all the time. And I think that gave me a little bit of longevity. But also I was very small as a kid until my kind of 16th birthday when I shot up. So, you know, yeah, I was very, very lucky. Had I been tall from the age of 12, I may not have had a career. So, and then, you know, I was very, I suppose, fortunate that I got given opportunities through the singing, like presenting and on the radio and TV and stuff like that. But also what bridged the gap for me between singing boy soprano and singing as an adult was Japan. Japan got to hear of my voice around the age of 16. I couldn't sing. So down went my spiky hair and off I went to Japan. And I do sort of 8 or 9 interviews a day. And then in the evening, I'd narrate Hansel and Gretel in Japanese whilst the Vienna Boys Choir sang and acted it on stage. So it was a very weird kind of 2 years where I'd dip in and out of Japan. And they released, I think, all 16 albums in Japan and, you know, sold over 2.5 million copies and stuff.
Not bad, eh? But what are you doing in the meantime to look after your voice? Is there a sort of therapeutic time that you go through where you're looking after it, resting it, I don't know, nurturing it, or do you stop thinking about it?
I stopped thinking about it, and I knew I wouldn't sing publicly. But yeah, I didn't. I had lessons only when I was sort of 18 and 19. So from the age of 16 to 18, I didn't really sing except around the house. And you know, I did rest it because I was told to rest it for quite a few years, and I did.
And of course, Aled, over the years, you've done so many TV shows and you've met so many famous people. Just looking through the gallery on your website, it's like a who's who of anyone who has been famous over the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, that was a great occasion. Engelbert Humperdinck, one of my heroes, really, you know, that was on the show Weekend I used to present for ITV. And I loved that show so much because it was long form interviews, which I really love, but also coupled with music. And, you know, who wouldn't enjoy seeing Engelbert sing up close and personal?
I know these are all experiences as well, aren't they? And they're pinch me moments. I always think you're so lucky to have had so many.
Absolutely.
So was this weekend as well with Ruby Wax?
Yes, it was. Yeah, never a dull moment with Ruby. And yeah, as I said, you know, every week I'd meet these sort of, as you know, it's wonderful people, and they rub off on you. You know, even there, Tony Robinson, great hero of mine as well. And Larry Lamb, of course, and Nino Aria, yeah, so amazing.
And there's a picture or a series of pictures we've got now of you doing a concert on board a plane.
I was singing "Walking in the Air," of course, Anne. Did you need to ask?
No,
Yeah,
I think
that was the bizarrest performance ever. On a Flybe flight from London to Cardiff, singing "Walking in the Air." There it is. Launching it, yeah.
So what, you just got up and did it because somebody recognised you and asked you about walking in the air or something?
No, it was set up. So it was, there were microphones and speakers and everything, and I had backing singers and the lot. It was just so bizarre. We flew to Cardiff. I sang "Walking in the Air" and a few other carols, and then flew back.
As I said, you're a bit synonymous with Christmas itself.
Yeah.
Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat must have been quite an experience too. How old were you when you did that?
I was straight out of college, so I was about 23. And it's so bizarre because, you know, I went to Bristol Old Vic Theatre School for 2 years, and there they sort of impact on you that you're never to have airs and graces, never to ask for makeup, never to ask for hair. You do everything yourself. And I go and get the role of Joseph, which was the biggest musical in the world at the time, with hair, makeup, you know, PA, the lot. It was, I suppose it came a little bit too soon because the voice was still very young. And even though I was getting standing ovations every night, the feeling and the emotion and stuff I had as a kid wasn't really there at that point in adulthood. It was only later, as I came back to songs of praise and started singing the hymns and stuff like that again, that everything seemed to click into place. But yeah, Joseph was an amazing, experience. I met my wife when I was doing Joseph, and and you know, I did it in Blackpool for the whole summer season. So we were there for 6 months. And to sell out the Winter Gardens in Blackpool was just a dream come true, really. They've got a board outside. It's a roll of honour. And some of the names on there, like Les Dawson, Shirley Bassey, some real greats from years and years ago. And if you look at, I think it's 94, it says Ala Jones. So I was really proud of that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Tell me more about meeting your wife then.
Well, she was taking a year out from college, and she was taking part in the Tower Circus at the time. And photographer, after the first night of all the shows in Blackpool, we were on North Pier, said, "Oh, we need a girl to have a photo on this ride with Aled." And they picked Claire, and she was, she didn't really know my background because she'd been living in France for quite a while. And we just sort of spent the summer season together. It was great.
Oh, and there you still are.
And there we start.
So the story goes on.
The magic of Blackpool.
Well, absolutely. Meeting extraordinary people, you'd like legends that you never thought you'd ever meet, must be amazing. And there's a lovely picture of you with Dame Julie Andrews. I mean, wow, Mary Poppins.
It doesn't get better than that. And actually singing Edelweiss with her, you know this more than anyone, that the greater the star, the nicer they are as well. And Julie Andrews was just unbelievable. I love her to bits and pieces, and to be able to interview her, and then at the end of the interview, both of us arm in arm singing Edelweiss together, that was 100% a pinch me moment. I remember also walking back in, I think it was a Liverpool Arena or something like that, walking back to our dressing room together, and she had her arm on my shoulder, and we were just chatting about the gig, and you just think, that's Julie Andrews.
Again, wonderful that you've got a picture.
Yeah.
Take so many pictures in days gone by. When you got married, there's you got Libera, the boys' choir, which Viking has a lot of relationships with. You got them to come and sing at your wedding.
I did, yeah. They're my favourite boy band, I always say. They are fantastic voices. Unfortunately, their leader, Robert Priceman, passed away recently, and Robert produced first 4 albums for me as an adult. I was going to say as a man then, which made it sound like I was something else before. Libra mean the world to me. I think they are absolutely fantastic, and they've been on probably about 4 or 5 of my albums over the years. And yeah, as I say, I think they're the real deal, and my favourite boy band.
Yeah, they're brilliant. You were in White Christmas.
I was, yeah. That was my West End debut in the Dominion Theatre. But I've done White Christmas all over. I did it in Manchester. I've done it in Liverpool. Done it in Dublin as well. And a great show to be involved with, because it snows in the auditorium and you hear the gasps from the crowd. But also, it's such a joyous show full of great Christmas music, and Irving Berlin. Wow, what a genius! But I worked out the other day that I actually during a week performance of White Christmas, I got to sing the song White Christmas 16 times a week.
Wow. It was a good song. It always was.
It was a good song, yeah, and only 2 verses, so even I can remember that.
Good. Got another picture of you with Tom Chambers, I think, also in White Christmas.
Yes. Sing the song Sisters, Sisters. That's a very funny moment in it.
And another picture of you with Dame Julie Andrews, but one of you is interviewing the other. I'm not quite sure which way around it is.
I'm interviewing her. I was very lucky to be on tour with her. Basically, it was just her and me. And so the whole second half was me interviewing her about her life. And again, very much like this, we had clips of her and also some shots of her through her career as well. And just, it was so interesting. I'd read every book about her anyway before going in interviewing her, so I knew everything about her. But just sharing the stage with a legend and somebody, I suppose, that everyone in the world knows.
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody in the entire world. There can't be anyone who doesn't know her. So it's quite something to have met and been so close with her and to have sung with her. Very jealous.
She wrote me a lovely letter after the tour, handwritten letter, which I've still got.
Well, again, she's such a lady, isn't she?
Yeah. And a proper star.
In sense of the word.
Yeah.
Nobody suits being a dame better, I think. I've got another couple of pictures. You're in very strange outfits. What's this first one here? What are you doing?
I'm dressed up as some classical musician for Classic FM. Again, Classic FM always seem to get me to do mad things for them. I'm always involved with their charity, Make Some Noise. And they actually, it was the year after I dressed up as, I don't know, Mozart, whoever I am there. They got me to wing walk as well.
Oh, I heard about this. Did you actually do it?
I did. And if anyone ever says to you, go wing walking, it's really good fun. It's not. It's horrendous. And again, the idea was that I was supposed to sing "Walking in the Air" whilst walking in the air. It was like
strapped to a biplane type thing.
Yeah, it's a biplane, and you're strapped to a pole, and you take off from a field, and it was horrendous.
Yeah, you should say no. You've got to learn to say no to these things.
I do. You're right.
I'll look for a picture of that. But we've got another one of you in a very strange helmet. Now, I don't know whether this is a costume or whether you've put off your motorbike.
This is how I travel in London. I travel everywhere on the back of motorbikes. They're called limo bikes, and basically gets you from A to B with no traffic. So I've used them probably for about 20 years, something like that. And yeah, they're brilliant. There's about 6 or 7 riders in London, and they give you the coat and the helmet, and off you go.
I love that. Do you know, I won't give his name away, but I know somebody else who's a big movie star who gets around London in exactly that sort of outfit, because you're anonymous. When you pulled the visor down, nobody knows who you are.
Yeah, and the first trip I did, the only reason I took it is because I had to go from when I started Radio 2 to Gatwick to catch a flight very, very quickly. And I'd never been on a motorbike before that trip. And I didn't realize that the helmet had a visor, and it was January the 5th. And I got to Gatwick and I felt like I had a facial because, you know, I'd been blasted by this ice cold air. But yeah, no, they're wonderful, a wonderful invention. It was Virgin that formed them to start with, but now they're just limo bike, and highly recommended.
Oh, that's interesting. Got one of you and Miley Cyrus. Lots of very recognizable faces here. Again, you've just had the chance to meet so many and to interview them. Nobody trained you as an interviewer, but you're an automatic one. You just do it.
I've always listened to people, I suppose, and that's the key, isn't it? You know, you listen to what people say, and as an interviewer, I always feel that I'm only there to bring out the best out of the guests. So, but Miley Cyrus was, one of my first interviews when I did Daybreak for a couple of years. So I ventured into your territory, but just not as good as you.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I found that very amusing when I watched you get up very, very early in the morning. Yeah. Oh, my goodness, how things changed. A lovely picture of you with Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro.
This is my favorite photo of all time, except that most people think that I've been superimposed in the background, and I really haven't. This was during Daybreak, and they were promoting a film that they were doing together, and it was the last interview of the day, so they were both in really happy spirits. I think De Niro was flying straight back to New York from that interview, and Sylvester Stallone, I just thought was just so generous, to think that I think he'd done something like 14, 15 interviews that day, and he was a lot of fun, and they both were actually, and that was a real highlight.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear that. I mean, it's something I've always thought, that some of these very, very big stars are very nice people, actually. Yeah. As long as you don't treat them and fawn at them or rude to them, I suppose. And they're used to that, aren't they? We've got Sandra Bullock.
She's again one of my favourites to interview as far as actresses are concerned. Again, she's so generous and also always up for a laugh. And she knew that I was exactly the same. So I interviewed her about 3 times during Daybreak, and she was always great fun. And but also gave as good as she got, and which is great.
Very big name indeed. Rachel Weisz, we've also got.
Yep, again, great fun. I did interview quite a few people.
Yeah, this is a reminder, isn't it? It's really cool. I mean, it's such a career you've had that's very different again from your early singing days. Anne Hathaway, another very big name.
Well, my daughter got to work with Anne as well in the film One Day when she was a very, very young child. And Anne, again, is a very kind person, always looking out for other people as well. And this was an interview that she gave for Les Mis, which she was fantastic in. And that's a musical I know and love very much. It's the one I listen to constantly on my Walkman when we used to be traveling from North Wales to London when I was a boy soprano. Yeah. When the whole carriage used to be staring at me, and I'd be so embarrassed, and I'd have my Walkman on just listening to Les Mis solidly.
Yeah, Michael Bublé we have.
Yeah, that was a Christmas special. We even got to sing together, and I can tell you what, his voice is amazing up close and personal. He really has such a resonance, and that was a bit of fun. We didn't really need the blanket, obviously, but someone thought it was a good idea to put it on there. But again,
photographs at Christmas. We've got Ed Sheeran.
Early on in his career, actually, he just started. And what a career he's had, a phenomenal artist and songwriter. And again, very down to earth, lives for the music, really. And I'm a great admirer of his, actually.
Incredible talent. Julianne Moore and Liam Neeson.
Yeah, well, the amount of times I've watched Liam Neeson films. This was for a movie they did, I think, called Non-Stop. And I'm a massive Liam Neeson fan. I love the films Taken. I've seen them many, many times, usually after a bottle of wine. It's my go-to, either that or Die Hard. And Julianne Moore was just beautiful. absolutely lovely, stunning
Good
actress.
movie as well, that one.
Yeah, it
Helen
is.
Mirren, who is obviously, just one of our amazing
Yeah.
dames.
And just again, I'm very lucky that I know another Dame very well, and that's Judi Dench. She's a really good friend of mine, and I would class Dame Helen and Dame Judi in the same sort of, same phrase really. They're legends, absolute legends.
Well, they are. They're great British dames. And Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, well, I know Benedict quite well because we're involved in the same charity together. We're a Story of Christmas, which is 9 lessons and carols we do every year. Raises about sort of £600,000 in one night. It's amazing, and it's usually the band of the Irish Guards and lots of famous readers. Judy's the president, I'm the vice president. So it's always the start of Christmas for me, really.
So I guess he speaks, you sing.
Yeah, no, I speak as well. I usually narrate it, and he does a reading.
Oh, right. I was going to say he doesn't sing, though, does
No,
he? I don't know.
no.
Maybe.
Oh, maybe, probably.
Donny Osmond, talking of people who do sing, a lovely one with you and Donny Osmond, and he's one of the great legends. Of course, he knows what it's like to be a boy star, doesn't he?
He does, and also Joseph. You see, he played Joseph in America for a very long time, and so yeah, I think we were reliving memories of how short each other's loincloths were in that shot.
Very sexy look. Talking of being child stars, and we've already seen you singing with your younger self. In this next little clip we've got, you're singing not only with your younger self. No, I think you're singing. Have I got it right? It's Danny Boy. So you're singing with your son.
Yes.
No, you're singing with your younger self.
Younger self, yeah.
Younger self. But later on, we'll see you singing with your own son. But
Right.
in this, we can only sadly play a short clip. But in this, it's what I mean, still one of the most wonderful tunes ever. But to hear you as an adult singing with that amazing young voice you had as well, this is just a knockout. Listen to this.
Oh, thanks.
It's I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
And that again was recorded for Classic FM, wasn't
Yeah.
it? That's at their studios, I presume.
Yeah, and it's funny, you never know how songs will resonate in other places in the world, but in Australia, that song would instantly get a sort of standing ovation. Amazing, really, that, as you say, it is one of the greatest songs ever, but it's, for me, I love performing that song, particularly with my younger boy voice. It's
Yes.
there's a real resonance to it. But yeah, in Australia, they love it.
Oh, it's an incredible high note that you seem to reach so easily as a young
Yeah, yeah. Well, as a kid, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lovely picture of you at Classic FM, because you've been back there, not just recording your singing voice, but presenting as well.
Yeah, I have a Sunday morning show, 7 till 10, and I also sit in for a lot of the presenters because I work the desk and everything myself. So I was at Classic FM for quite a few years, and I went to Radio 2 for 5-6 years, and then I'm now back at Classic FM, and I've been there for, I think, about 8 years now. I love it there. It's such a vibrant station, promoting classical music, which I love. And especially this time of year, Classic FM is seen as the home of Christmas music. And the minute we start playing carols, I secretly really love it.
You listen to it as well, then, do you?
I do, yeah. And it's amazing what impact it's had on people during lockdowns and COVID as well. So many people have turned to Classic FM where they want to get away from the news and they just want to listen to calming music that makes them feel good,
Oh, absolutely. And it does introduce people. I love that. I love it when the presenters say, well, if you really like this, you might like that, and introduce you to a piece of classical music that you hadn't stumbled across yourself before. It makes it exciting.
Yeah.
I've got a lovely picture of you with Prince Charles and Camilla. What was that all about? Was that at Classic FM?
It was a Classic FM event in Scotland, and I was presenting it, and lovely Mylene, who's my dear friend, and I was singing. She was playing the harp, actually, and I was singing Siogan. And it's funny because I've sung for Prince Charles all my life, and I think that night he just sort of came up to me and said something like, "Oh, we're both getting older." But it was, again, lots of my Classic FM friends there as well. Alan Titchmarsh, who I've known for years and years. Well, actually, funny enough, I probably met him with you.
Yes, probably did.
And so, yeah, Alan's been there throughout my career, really, and he's with me on Classic FM as well.
And I always wanted to know, when you are introducing bits of classical music, I mean, you say you work the desk yourself, so that's all the mixing between the microphones and all the rest of it. I mean, what do you do when you're in for there's a 20-minute Beethoven, symphony or something? Do you go off and have a cup of tea?
Yeah. Sometimes, no. I usually, I'm very much like the listener at home. I put my feet up in the studio. I got told off once, but yeah, if I've got time, I'll go and get a cup of tea, or and you think about what I'm going to be saying next. Really, it's I love doing the daily shows on Classic as well, because I very often do the request show, which means that you're flying by the seat of your pants because you don't know what's coming in and what people are going to say, and so that goes very, very quickly, that show, I always find, but I do enjoy it.
And what do people say? Presumably they are getting in touch with you while you're live.
Yeah, they are. It's very embarrassing because quite often people want to hear me sing, and I won't play me because it just seems really weird that that's it, that was me singing. So that doesn't happen. So I have to always say no. Try next week when the main presenter's back. Yeah. But people are very often on the roads listening. Traveling to and from, seeing family and stuff like that, because we can at the moment. And lots of celebrations, usually anniversaries and birthdays and stuff like that.
Yes, and people have lovely stories to tell you. And I know sometimes you tell us, the listeners, what those stories are, and it makes you, and that's the incredible thing, is that it is all over the world as well. And people are emailing you from all over the world.
Yeah.
You do a sense of globalness, I suppose. We talked earlier about the fact that you've done 14 albums in something like your first 4 years as a professional singer, as a little boy. How many albums is it now, and what are your latest ones?
40 I've done now. The last one was last year. I was very lucky to be able to release a book and an album together, and it was a book of blessings. Basically a blessing for every day of the year from different faiths and none, and the album that went with it, sort of showcasing different faiths and none. So there was a duet with me and a Muslim singer called Sami Yusuf, which went down really well, and I really enjoyed doing. That was my last album last year. I'm not releasing one this year, but I am on Gary Barlow's Christmas album. Gary and I have done a duet together. That was a joy. Again, you never know what's going to happen, and the phone goes and it's Gary saying, will you sing with me? And of course I said yes straight away. So that this year is I'm on Gary's album, and I've got the children's book which I've written, my first children's novel.
Well, before we go on to the children's book, because I wanted to ask you about that, Blessings. I mean, what an interesting thing to write a book and do an album in 2019 or just before Christmas. When you think of what an amazing year we've had, and I mean amazing as sort of almost shocking, terrible as well. How has the last year been for you, and how have you been able to count your blessings this last year?
Well, I think it's made everyone realise how important those close to us are, really, and to hold on to them tightly, really. As with everyone else, every performer anyway, I have my diary in my phone. And I've said this before in an interview, but it was like a scene from Harry Potter. I just saw sort of 100 live dates just disappear, postponed or cancelled. My tour got postponed twice. Thankfully, I'm going to be back on the road next year, February and March. So I thought to myself, I've got to do something else, really. Luckily, I was, still doing the TV and the radio and everything like that. I continued on Classic throughout all the lockdowns. And I thought to myself, I've had this idea for a book. And so I learned how to write for children. I've written scripts, I've written books previously, but never for kids. And I had to learn how to write dialogue, really, and how to write punchily. And so I got put together with a writer who said from the beginning, I'm not going to write any words for you. You're going to have to do it all yourself. And so we spent 6 months with me sending stuff, him sending it back, saying, this is rubbish, this is good, try this. And then, I wrote the book on the back of that. And I've just finished the second one, which is coming out in Easter, and then there's another one coming out in the summer.
Goodness, you're very prolific. You're hardworking, aren't you? You do a lot.
I like, it was Terry Wogan that said to me, spread yourself as thinly as possible because it makes it more difficult for people to get rid of you. And so, I'm the master of nothing, but, I enjoy the variety a great deal. And this was something I really wanted to do. So the minute I had the finished book in my hands, I was so proud, really. And, it's been beautifully illustrated by Rosie Brooks, who's become a dear friend of mine. And I never thought I'd be able to do something like this. So it's been a challenge, but a good one.
And I wouldn't agree that you're the master of nothing, for heaven's sake. We've got another little video coming up, which I'll ask you about a bit later. But it's "The Lord Is My Shepherd," and in the full version, and we're not going to play the full version now, but in the full version, we hear you as a little choir boy yourself.
Yep.
Then we hear you as an adult, and then we hear you singing with your son, your own son.
Yeah.
Who is? I mean, is he a singer too? Did he?
He was a really fine.
Another added.
He was a really fine boy soprano, but he's now 6'2" and 16, so that voice has gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, he loves music and he loved singing, and it was completely natural for him. You know, he never had a lesson; he'd just sing at school, and it was never going to be sort of on the cards that he would be a recording artist or anything. But he just fancied having a go at this, and
good.
he's lovely. Yeah.
I mean, everybody must say this to you. He looks so like you.
I know it not so much now. I think he's very lucky in that respect. But yeah, he used to get that a lot. And
when I first saw the video, and people will know when they see it in a couple of seconds. When I first saw it, I thought, hang on a minute, is that Aled or isn't it? I couldn't figure it out until you joined him as an adult. See this little clip anyway, and there's more of it on YouTube if you want to see the full version. But this is just gorgeous.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pasture. He leadeth me beside the still waters.
That is stunning. As a dad, you must be so proud.
Yeah, I get all dewy-eyed watching that. Really, I haven't seen it for maybe over a year, and yeah, it was a great occasion. And do you know what? It led to he and I going on a month tour to Australia together, just the two of us, and it was such an amazing experience. And every night I would sing that song, but just with his voice. He didn't perform it, and it was always a highlight of that tour, being able to sing, you know, with my younger boy voice, which is very sort of, you know, dramatic really, but also having that opportunity to sing with my son. Yeah, amazing. And I'm so pleased that we recorded that, because it's there forever.
It is, exactly. That's important. What's he going to do? Does he know? He's only 16. He probably doesn't.
No, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know really. You know, and I didn't really know at 16 either.
No, who knew?
Yeah.
But your daughter, however, is forging ahead with a very successful acting career.
Yeah, she is. She's having a great time. You know, she's spent the last 3 years in Canada filming Lock and Key for Netflix, and that photo is from a film that she's done called Coda, which is child of deaf adults, and it's won lots and lots of awards for her and for the film. And yeah, she's riding the wave at the moment. She's currently in LA, coming back tomorrow. And she's just finished a film in New York as well. So every weekend she seems to be in LA at the moment.
Meanwhile, you've got a ton of awards to your name. You've got lots of things sitting on your bookshelf, I'm sure, little awards and stuff. But getting your MBE from Prince William must have been a particularly proud moment.
Yeah, it was his first one, and I was petrified really. But he and I spoke very dearly about his mum, who I knew very well. And of course, you and I have one thing in common, don't we, Anne?
Yeah, we do. We all have the same hairdresser. Richard Dalton, the lovely Richard, who might well be watching from his home in the States at the moment. But whenever, it was a curious time, because we used to meet up a lot.
Yeah.
That's Diana.
Yeah, and the hilarious thing is that if you look at all three of our hairs at that time, we were very similar.
We've got the same haircut. I wouldn't want to say that out loud, but actually, yes. If you look at Diana in the 80s, you and I, we all had the same haircut.
Isn't it brilliant? I love it that us three had the same hairdresser. Brilliant.
Yeah. You and I used to go around to his flat and stick our head in his sink. I don't think Princess Diana ever did that.
No,
but
she didn't.
But you get little messages from him, from her as well.
Yeah.
And I know it was fun being in that circle.
It really was.
As you said, getting your MBE from her son. Ooh,
yeah. And also, you know, I don't kind of, to be honest with you, I don't even know where my MBE is. That's terrible. But, you know, those sort of things I never kind of use or show off about, really. I get a bit embarrassed about things like that. I'm still quite shy when it comes to that sort of stuff. So, at the end of the day, I just do what I do, and that's sing and present.
Oh, well, I'll embarrass you a bit more then, because you've got your fellowship at the Royal College of Music, which, again, a lovely moment. And that's not showbiz. That's real music accolade, isn't it?
Yeah, again, that was unexpected completely. And the principal there behind me, it was, I went to the Royal Academy of Music way too young because, my voice wasn't really mature, but I learned a lot there. But, I spent most of the time sort of going out in London and playing football and stuff like that. But maybe I needed that as well.
If you get a fellowship, does that allow you to do anything extraordinary?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
I should look into it. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing out on something.
Well, maybe one of the best photographs is you and Kermit the Frog.
Well, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? Absolutely. I was pretty in awe, to be honest with you. Kermit came on one morning, and Lorraine and I were, fawning over him and wanting photos left, right, and centre. Again, it's incredible, isn't it, when somebody, something like, how do you describe Kermit?
I think he is.
Yeah, somebody comes in like that. The whole studio just wanted photos. From down to cameramen, runners, sound people, everyone wanted Kermit.
And obviously, not to give too much away, but you do find yourself talking to Kermit the Frog. You don't notice any of the things that.
Well, exactly. And my first experience of that was with you on TVAM with Roland Rat, of course, and who would constantly call me Alec.
Yeah, Alec, just to put you in your place.
Yeah, and then one Christmas blew me up, which is great.
Oh dear, that is silly. Like I say, Christmas is a very silly time sometimes.
Yeah.
I've got some final pictures from your gallery of you with the Beefeaters. Now, what's that about?
This was in a garden party in Buckingham Palace for war veterans. And so they happened to be there, and it seemed like a good photo opportunity at the time. Picture. They look very smart, don't they? And that's actually my one and only garden party I've ever been to, and it was a great occasion. Yeah, I think I must have signed about over 1,000 autographs that afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's what you're there for, I suppose, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
I've got a few questions from some of our lovely viewers all over the world. Eva in New York says, where is your favourite place to spend Christmas?
Oh, wherever my family is, really. Last year, I spent it in Canada because Emilio was working there. So I was in Toronto, knee deep in snow. I love Toronto, a great city. There's nowhere better than North Wales, to be honest with you. This year, we're going to be spending it in London. I'm not sure how I'd feel about Australia. I do tour Australia every year. I'm not sure how I'd feel about hot Christmas, but I'm willing to give it a go.
Oh, it's brilliant. You can have a barbie on the beach. Actually,
exactly.
Of Wales, Sven in Oslo says, is there something truly musical about the Welsh voice, or is it just tradition?
A bit of both, I think. Someone once told me that your vowels are only open when you sing, because the Welsh vowels are very open when they sing, if the quality of air is good. So if it's fresh air, mountain air or sea air like we've got in North Wales, all the vowels are big, open, But we're encouraged in Wales from the moment we're born, really, to sing. You sing in school, you sing in competitions and perform all the time. And that's always been the case, really. So I think maybe it's a good question, but I think it's a combination of both, and also the fact that it is tradition. One of the highlights of my talking about Wales, one of the highlights of my singing career was singing the Welsh national anthem in the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff before Wales went on to beat England in the rugby.
Bet you had a wonderful time.
Fun, I did that time
afterwards.
yeah, that was mad.
Paul in Greenwich, I'm not sure whether that's in the States or actually here in the UK. He says, have you ever spent a quiet Christmas doing absolutely nothing Christmassy and no concerts? Or are you like Santa? Is it always your busiest time of the year?
It's always busy. Thankfully, I'm busy all throughout the year, unless COVID is around. I tend to work a lot over Christmas. I quite like working right up to Christmas and then having some time off. I hate the month of January with a passion. The whole idea of starting again somehow in a cold, wet, miserable month when nothing much happens in the world, as you know, in the world of TV anyway, because everyone's on.
Australia.
Yeah, and I do quite often, actually, or I go away. I tend to work right up to Christmas. This year I'm on Classic FM on the breakfast show up until Christmas Eve. And then I'll probably work in between Christmas and New Year, because I have a birthday on the 29th of December, which no one ever wants to celebrate because they've all overdone it at Christmas and they're gearing up for the New Year. So I'd rather just work. Yeah.
How old are you? No, I'm not going to ask.
51 this
Yeah,
year.
it makes me feel older, you saying that, so let's not go there. Barbara in Illinois says, what do your own kids think of your childhood fame? Did you not think to warn them against it, or did you have a good experience as a child star?
I was never a child star, really. I was just a kid who sang and had amazing, wonderful experiences. A child star always makes me think of sort of tap shooters and ringlets, and that wasn't me at all, as you know. And, you know, I had two very down-to-earth parents who made me go to comprehensive school most of the time. So, you know, I would always encourage my kids to do whatever. And my daughter is very much following that path now. So, you know, and she's looked after by great people and cared for. And I'm just dad. So, you know, if she needs advice, I'll give her advice. But otherwise, I just watch her with admiration from afar. But I would encourage everyone to get into this sort of world, because it's good fun.
Sam and Beryl from West Lothian say, is there anyone you would still love to sing with, or wish you had the chance?
I'd love to sing with Andrea Bocelli, actually. We never have. We've been on television shows together many times, but we've never recorded with one another. Other than that, no, I'm not sure. I sang on the same show as Pavarotti, but I never got to meet him because he was singing. It was actually the same song as well. We were doing Where'er You Walk together, but he happened to be in Rome and I was in Paris.
Oh.
The wonders of technology, not. So yeah, I think Andrea Bocelli is probably somebody I'd quite like to sing with now.
Well, look, we've come to the end of our time, and it's been wonderful to talk to you. But I know, like, you've got to get off. You've got work to do. You've got an awful lot to do. But I'd just love to say thank you so much for joining me again. It's been such fun to see you again. As I say, we go back, and it's like picking up a conversation where we left it off a few years ago. So.
Absolutely, and you mean the world to me, because you have been there throughout my career, and you know, you were always the best. So you know, it's lovely to catch up with you as well, especially Christmas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you off to do now?
A Classic FM. I've got a few pre-records to do, and then I've got to finish my second book. So yeah, takes in the Easter term with Bobby. So yeah, taking him on some mad adventures.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, and happy Christmas. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas to you as well.
Well, since it is so very nearly Christmas, we thought you'd love to hear Walking in the Air again, the song that Aled made so famous. So here it is. This time it's sung by a choir that Aled knows very well, as we heard, because they sang at his wedding, and which Viking loves to support whenever they can, the boys' choir Libera and Walking in the Air. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and have a wonderful Christmas.
drifting